Okay, so I'm going to actually in this video show you guys how I would start to mix skin tone. And I'm going to use ultramarine blue. It's a warmer blue, which means it has a red bias. And we'll also use some cool blues as well, but I think that it's a good color to kind of start with your flesh tone mixing. And then I'm going to just use like a primary red. You can use cadmium red as well. I'm trying to use basic colors that you guys are more likely to have it or find if you guys have a kit, like a basic acrylic paint set. And so skin tone is going to consist of a lot of different colors, but I start with a base color that I can kind of add other colors to. And it's going to have some white in it, depending on what color skin that you're making. So Samuel is very fair-skinned, and it's obviously going to be different ratios of different colors. I think that the most is going to be the red and the yellow, probably more of the yellow than the red, but we're going to mix kind of essentially like an orangish color. I think I'm going to need more of this yellow for sure. And I always mix more paint than I think I need because it's horrible to be in the middle of a painting and run out of the color. And you'll also notice that different colors have different strengths. Like the red has a lot more power than the yellow. One, because of its pigment strength, but also its value. Red is darker than yellow on the color wheel. So I'm just going to go ahead and add more yellow to this. And usually I would put yellow down in the same spot and slowly add it, but I know that I need a good bit more, so this isn't going to turn this pile of paint into just too yellow. It is getting to a nice orange point, and I'm going to add some blue. That was probably way too much. So this is kind of like a battle that you have to fight where you just kind of continue to go back and forth until you have the color that you need. This, I think, needs a little bit more of that yellow because I did add a lot of blue, which is fine because this is going to give me more of my base color. And honestly, I probably should have even mixed more than this. So this to me looks a little bit heavy on the red. And I definitely don't think that I need more blue. Sometimes at this point, it's good to take a little bit out and see what happens when you lighten it. It's easier to see kind of what color that you have if it has a little bit of white. So we're getting pretty close to a skin tone here. And the most important thing is going to be to make several variations of it, like I told you guys before. It's not just one solid pure color on your face. You have all different variations from the shadows and like your natural skin being like more red or more green than anyone else's. It's a very unique thing to each person. So let's see if I can get this. So you guys can kind of see this is the color that I've made with the red, yellow, and blue. And it is pretty close to what Samuel's skin tone would look like. Sorry, I'm trying to adjust it for you guys. It might need a little bit more blue. It still looks kind of fake, I guess is a good way to describe it to me. It's just a little bit too warm and peachy. Okay, there we go. So I just added a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of blue, and it's like, looks very, a lot more natural at this point. And I think that this is actually going to be really good if adding. So I'm going to add just a touch more blue to this big pile here, and then I'll separate a little bit of it out for like a darker color, and then I'm going to start adding greens, and I'll do some that have like a little bit more of the blue bias, a little bit more of a red, and possibly a little bit more yellow, just to have as many. I would at least start with, even within the same value, 4 different colors of skin, and then you're going to add some more blue to certain ones, or more green to certain ones in a darker shade, and then as we start to lighten it, I will be adding small amounts of both yellow and white. I'm going to grab my water and be right back. Okay. So I'm going to add this little bit of blue over here to the big pile, and I did accidentally get some of that lighter skin tone in, but that's okay because Samuel's skin is very fair. And it's still a little bit red, so I'm going to go back in with a little bit more blue. And I'm going to know that if I add white, I'm going to have a natural looking skin tone for Samuel. And I'm going to go ahead and add, which you guys aren't going to have this, but because I'm making this video and taking breaks, I'm going to add this. It's called Retarder, and it slows down the drying process of acrylic paint so that I'm kind of more able to work you guys through this video without having to stop and mix more color, because acrylic does dry so incredibly fast. And you can, to help you guys with that, you can cover it in saran wrap, and you can put it in the freezer. That helps keep it wet for longer and workable for longer. But I'm going to, as I said, separate a little bit of this out, and that is, this is going to be like a warm shadow color, and I'm going to take another bit of it for a cooler, darker shadow that I'm going to add blue to. And this will just be coming across in like little areas. So if these colors kind of don't look like they fit, they will fit much better once you add them to the rest of the painting in small amounts. And those are really dark compared to what I'm going to be having, because Samuel's skin is even lighter than this little pile that we made. So with this, I'm going to move it back into the center and add white and more yellow to it to start getting closer to the mid-range. And that burnt sienna that I put down as a tonal wash is probably going to be quite dark compared to the rest of him, so that left exposed in areas is going to provide a really nice shadow, where I just will like not paint over the tone and leave it exposed. And I'm going to still add a little bit more blue because this is kind of just a little bit too warm. And blue is a cool color, so it will tone down the warmth of the paint. And I spend a lot of time mixing my palette. It's very important to have the right colors. I think that that is going to be cool enough. And I still think even for like a mid-range for his skin, this is like incredibly too dark. He also has kind of a reddish tint. So I'm going to come back with a little bit more red. And you guys, this is like, it's all of just balancing color and playing around. I've been doing this for a really long time, so I feel like if this looks like I'm doing it really fast or this is crazy, it comes with just like experience with playing around with the paint colors. Let's see, I'm kind of looking at this reference image of Samuel, and his skin is still a lot more pale than this. And sometimes when you add white, it can kind of cause the paint to look chalky. So when I add white, I'm also going to add some yellow. If you guys see me do that, that's why. To get more of this yellow color. And honestly, I might come in with a little bit different of a yellow. This yellow kind of seems to have a green bias. So a cadmium would probably be good to come back in and have a little bit more warmth. It's kind of cool to see how experimenting with like warm and cool yellows and blues and reds and greens can affect your paint color. I still need more white, but I think at this point I'm going to split some of this off for another value to his skin. And I'm going to add more white. And this is sort of starting to get a little bit too like washed out or brown. It's looking less realistic. So because I've added so much just yellow and white, so it's a good idea to like keep adding as you add those colors, just touches of that blue and red, just to keep it consistent and realistic. And make sure you're adding like the smallest amounts, because you can always add more, but you can't really take away. The only way to fix that is by adding more of the other colors. If you like add too much blue, you'll have to add way more red and yellow and white. And I need a lot more white. So this is good though, because that means that I'm going to have enough paint to paint his portrait without mixing more, hopefully. I also have a tendency to use a lot of paint, so me saying that doesn't really mean that much. Starting to get lighter, but I think I need much, much lighter. And I'm going to look at this reference photo again. I think that this is still too yellow and brownish. Because he has that red tint to his skin. I'm going to add just a little bit more of this red. So I'm going to again take some of this, put this right here. I'm just kind of creating this value system. And his skin is, believe it or not, still much more pale than this. And sometimes, so not sometimes, but with depending on the color of the skin that you're doing, if it's a darker tone or a medium tone, you might be using different reds and blues and yellows. Like alizarin crimson is a cooler red and sometimes for darker skin tones it makes more sense to use that. And then you can also use some of the burnt siennas in place of the yellow, which you'll still probably add some yellow, but it can get more, it can shift colors. As you shift skin tones, some people have like a medium tone with like more red or more yellow, and you just have to kind of pay attention to what you're looking at and be really good, have good observation skills. I just need to add the whole tube of white. I'm going to just at this point continue to add in some of these other colors so I don't start to get too pink. There is definitely some pink in skin tone, but it's in just certain areas. Okay, so I'm going to place some of this to the side, and that is a little bit lighter in my scale. This, I think I'm going to also split some of this off so I can see how much white I'm going to need to really lighten it enough for his skin. I'm just going in all this white. This is getting closer to how fair his skin is. It's a little bit pink. And that's something that I also do that I don't know if you guys noticed me look at it next to my skin. But I can see some of the blue from even my veins is causing a differentiation in color. And I can also just tell next to it, there's some more red in areas. Maybe even need to add some green at this point. But as long as you guys have this base that's going to be close to accurate, then you should be good. So I'm going to keep this. This is going to be my next to lightest value for his skin. And then I'm going to use this one and add a good bit more white to it, and then I will be set on my base. This is pretty much how light his skin is, so that's good. I'm obviously going to be adding a little bit more to this color, but this is the value that I would say his skin rests at. So I've got a really nice shift in values here and places to go with this. So I will go ahead and put, I'm going to break this up into separate piles that I'm going to be adding more red, more yellow, more green, and blue too. Okay, so I'm going to add some sap green to my palette. And this is what I will be putting to this little pile right here. And like I said, the more variation that you have, the more realistic your skin tones are going to look. A little bit more. And one of the easiest things to do is over add a color, because especially once you realize the strength of the particular pigment of it. And this one, I think because it has so much white, it's requiring a little bit more to kind of tint the color with the green. And now, okay, so this one has a slight greenish tint, and that is what you're going for. You're not trying to make it look green. you're trying to give a tint of green where you're like, is that what green? But you're not like, whoa, that's green. If that makes sense. And I'm going to do that with the rest of these, so, but with different colors. So for one, I'm going to add more of the blue. This will be in some of like the shadow areas where his skin is looking a little bit cooler, but it's not like super dark. Or not the shadow areas, I'm sorry. Just in the cooler areas of his face that are still in the light. So like areas that are concave. I think it might need a little bit more of this blue. I'm trying to be really careful not to overdo it. But even if you do just by a little bit, you can correct it. So this might need a little bit more yellow now. And possibly, once I lay this down onto the canvas, I need to see how these colors are going to react with that red oxide background or wash on the canvas, because it could potentially make these colors look more blue or red. Like you really don't know quite until you see them side by side. But I think that should give you guys kind of a pretty decent, solid understanding of how to mix skin tones. And I don't want this video to just be like incessantly long, so I might explain more to you guys when I pick it back up for when we do the actual painting. But